Why didn't anything else exist? Well, what else could have existed? According to Professor Weinberg, the only way that any sort of science can proceed is to assume that there is no divine intervention and to see how far one can get with that assumption. That is, the way science proceeds is to assume that nothing exists except material forces, energy, and the relations between those forces, the energy and the material particles. Matter, energy, the void, is all that exists. There's no pre-existing purpose, no mind behind everything, or whatever. Now, you see, starting with that standpoint, it follows as a matter of elementary logic that everything exists today had its origin in the initial conditions at the beginning of the Big Bang. That the vast explosion of energy and then matter and that follows that is responsible for the existence of galaxies and stars, even though no one knows how galaxies were formed, and that the interactions of matter on the resulting planets, particularly on Earth, were responsible for life arising without any purpose being behind it, that life became more complex on its own steam, and that life generated, once it had gotten started, generated consciousness and intelligence. To deny that this is the true story of the entire history of the cosmos is to suggest that something else entered at some point from outside. And to suggest that that could be the case, says Professor Weinberg, would be to repudiate science. You say it would be to repudiate the whole scientific enterprise. And so that is why a critique of a particular part of that enterprise, such as the neo-Darwinian paradigm, is of no particular interest. Something very much like neo-Darwinian evolution has to have occurred in any case, because there is no alternative within the reductionist view of the history of the cosmos. If it didn't happen exactly as Darwin imagined it, it must have happened in some other way that likewise involves nothing but purposeless material forces, because until life evolved and became complex enough to have intelligence and purpose, there was no intelligence and purpose around to have any effect on the outcome of physical processes. And so criticism of a particular plank in the reductionist platform is beside the point. Something very much like that must have happened anyway. And if indeed the theories run stark into what seems to be disconfirming evidence, that simply shows that they are incomplete. Because, after all, in many areas of science, there's great difficulty in accounting for the facts. The theories seem not to explain all the facts. That's a reason to look for better theories, but never a reason to discard the scientific program, which in its broadest sweep is the reductionist program. Persons who are trying to explain how memories can be stored in the brain, how conscious life can be produced just by chemicals in the brain, face many difficulties. But they don't doubt that the process can be carried out. Otherwise, their work would be hopeless. Persons who are trying to explain how life arose may find that their experiments all end in futility, that they're forced to work, as indeed they are now, with distinct theories that are mutually contradictory. And they seem to be getting nowhere. No matter, life must have arisen by purposeless chemical evolution because there is no alternative.